As required in the New York State law passed by the legislature on March 16, 1821, the first annual meeting of the town of Ithaca was held on April 3rd, 1821, which that year was the first Tuesday of April. The law specified that the first meeting would be held at the Tompkins County Courthouse. The courthouse had been built in 1818 as a condition for the state creating Tompkins County out of southern portions of the older, larger Seneca County on the west side of Cayuga Lake and out of the southern portion of Cayuga County on the east side of the lake. The courthouse was built on the then named Mill Street in what was then the village of Ithaca, now known as Court Street in the city of Ithaca. And the courthouse was located on the same spot where the 1854 courthouse still stands, which has become the current home of the Tompkins County Legislature. Let's go back in time now and try to imagine what might have happened 200 years ago, just a block away from where I am now in the present-day town hall on North Tioga Street. Since we do not have a word-for-word transcription from the first annual meeting, some poetic license has been taken to create the dialogue that you will hear that will flesh out the town clerk's minutes. As you listen, you will hear some references to the Bucktails. The Bucktails were one of the active political factions in Ithaca and throughout New York State at the time, and they were the supporters of Martin Van Buren, who opposed the then governor of New York, DeWitt Clinton. You may recall that Governor Clinton is famous for spearheading the building of the Erie Canal from 1817 to 1825, and that the canal was sometimes called Clinton's Ditch. The Bucktail Party formed back in 1818 as a faction of the New York Democratic Republicans. The Democratic Republicans had been the party of Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, and were sometimes called simply Republicans with a lowercase r. They were not related to the modern-day Republican Party, which was not founded until 1854. The new town of Ithaca was created containing the village of Ithaca, and the village was incorporated on April 2nd, 1821, the day before the first town meeting that you will hear reenacted today. 15 individuals from the village had petitioned the state legislature in 1820 to create the new village of Ithaca. The village would later go on to become the city of Ithaca in 1888. But as a village, it was originally part of the new town of Ithaca, and many of its 15 original founders were very active in the first annual meeting of the town, as you will soon hear. All of the names of the individuals who will speak now are the actual names of the persons who were elected to various offices at the first annual meeting. And all the wording of the motions made for the resolutions at the end of this reenactment is the actual wording recorded in the minutes of the meeting. At various points during this reenactment, a historical commenter will chime in to provide some background information or to explain some things that the participants at the first annual meeting would go on to do after 1821. And now we turn to the first town clerk, Isaac Beers, to start our reenactment.
My fellow citizens, welcome to the first annual meeting of the freeholders and inhabitants of the new town of Ithaca, which was created 3 weeks ago by the New York State Legislature. My name is Isaac Beers, and I am one of the 15 founders of the village of Ithaca and was elected as one of the 3 assessors for the village. As you can tell by the deer tail in my hat, I am a member of the Bucktail Party. Today, we will elect town residents to a variety of town offices and then entertain various motions on matters to be decided at this first annual meeting. First, let us hear from any candidates who wish to address us. I myself am a candidate for the position of town clerk, and if elected, I will take minutes at all town meetings. Are there any candidates for the office of town supervisor?
I rise to volunteer myself for the office of town supervisor. My name is Nathan Herrick, and I am a partner with David Booth Beers in a mercantile business. I am also an assessor for the village of Ithaca.
Nathan Herrick would go on to supervise the building in 1824 of a public market at the intersection of Tioga and Green Streets.
Are there any candidates for the office of assessor?
My name is Caleb Davis, and I am running for one of the three positions as assessor. I'm a farmer with a farm of 400 acres on the road to Elmira in the southern portion of the town. As assessor, I will work with my two colleagues to find all the people and property in the town that are taxable. I will determine the value of all land and also all personal property subject to taxation. I will assess all people and property between May and July, and I will deliver the tax list to the collector.
Are there any candidates for the office of collector?
My name is Ebenezer Vickery, and I am running for the position of collector. In that position, I will receive the tax list from the three assessors in July and then make at least 2 visits to each household to attempt to collect the taxes due. If any taxes are not paid, I will take personal property from the inhabitants and sell it to pay off the tax debt. I am also running for the position of constable.
Ebenezer Vickery would later go on to become Tompkins County Sheriff from 1826 to 1828.
Are there any candidates for the office of overseer of the poor?
My name is Jesse Merritt, and I am running for one of the 2 positions of overseer of the poor. I've served on the committee to build the church on the northwest corner of Aurora and Mill Street. In my position, I will meet with all the poor in the town and apportion the money collected through the tax list to help maintain the poor. In addition, I will also meet with the overseers of the poor from the new towns of Enfield and Ulysses on the 2nd Tuesday of May, as specified in the state legislation that created our towns 3 weeks ago.
The street that was called Mill Street in 1821 is the street we now call Court Street. The Mill Street name derived from a mill located at the eastern end of the street on Cascadilla Creek, which existed before the county courthouse was built on that street in 1818. The northwest corner of Aurora and Mill Street is where the United Methodist Church building now stands.
My name is Eliakim Dean, and I am a carpenter. I built the first sawmill in Newfield in 1809 on land I purchased in 1802. As an overseer for the poor, I will work with Jesse Merritt to carry out the responsibilities he just mentioned. Thus, in just over a month, on May 8th, we will all gather at the home of Edmund Hopkins in Ulysses and apportion the poor and the monies that had previously been collected for the poor by the old town of Ulysses. I am also running for overseer of highways for District 7.
Are there any candidates for the office of Commissioner of Highways?
My name is Moses Davenport. I am the innkeeper of the Columbian Inn on the corner of Owego Street and Cayuga Street. I am running for Commissioner of Highways and also for the position of Overseers of Highways for District Number 1. For the years from 1804 until 1818, when the new courthouse was built, the annual town meetings for the old town of Ulysses were held at my house.
My name is David Coddington, and I'm also running for Commissioner of Highways. And in that position, I and the 2 other commissioners will be able to define and survey the highways for the town and create the 37 separate highway districts that the town will be divided into, and work with the 37 overseers for each district to ensure that all our highways are maintained.
Are there any candidates for the office of constable?
My name is Amasa Woodruff, and I am a fireman in the village of Ithaca. I'm running for the office of constable along with Ebenezer Vickery, As constables, we will help maintain the peace and enforce the laws in the town.
Are there any candidates for the office of Commissioner of Schools?
My name is John Witten, and I am the owner of a cabinet shop near the intersection of Aurora and Seneca Streets. I'm running for one of 3 positions of Commissioner of Schools.
My name is Colonel John Johnson, and I'm the Tompkins County Clerk. I'm supervising the construction of the county clerk's office along with Nathan Herrick and Luther Gear, and I'm also running for Commissioner of Schools.
My name is Andrew DeWitt Bruin, and I too am running for one of the Commissioner of Schools positions. I am an attorney and one of the directors of the Bank of Ithaca. I am a cousin of Simeon DeWitt, the Surveyor General of New York State, who in 1795 purchased the 1,400 acres that now make up the village of Ithaca. I am also related to Martin Van Buren, the leader of our Bucktail Party.
Andrew DeWitt Bruin would go on to have an active political career, likely due in part to his close connection with his relative, Martin Van Buren, who would become the 8th President of the United States in 1836 and who visited Andrew Bruin in Ithaca twice in the 1830s. Andrew DeWitt Bruin became the 2nd President of the Village of Ithaca in 1822, the 2nd Town Supervisor in 1825, was a presidential elector for Andrew Jackson in 1828, and then was elected to Congress in 1836.
Are there any candidates for the office of Inspector of Common Schools?
My name is Benjamin Polton, and I am the owner of a scrivener's office. I have served as a Commissioner of Schools for the Old Town of Ulysses and am one of the 15 founders of the Village of Ithaca. I am running for the position now of Inspector of Common Schools.
My name is Reuben Judd. I am also running for one of the 2 positions for Inspector of Common Schools. As such, I will inspect the schools created and authorized by the Commissioner of Schools. I'm also running for the Overseer of Highways for District 5.
Are there any candidates for the office of Trustee of the School and Gospel Lots?
My name is Luther Gear, and I am one of the 15 founders of the Village of Ithaca. I am currently the treasurer of the Tompkins County Agricultural Society. I also own a tavern on the southeast corner of Aurora and Seneca Streets. I was one of the first directors of the Ithaca branch of the Bank of Newburgh and am now president of the board of directors of the Bank of Ithaca. I am running for trustee of the school and gospel lots.
I'm Charles Humphrey. I'm one of the 15 founders of the Village of Ithaca. I am an attorney, a banker, and the secretary of the Cayuga Steamboat Company, which operates at Steamboat Landing at the southern end of Cayuga Lake. I'm also running for the position of trustee of the school and gospel lots.
Charles Humphrey also had an active political career, becoming a congressman in 1825, the 5th president of the Village of Ithaca in 1827, Tompkins County surrogate judge in 1831, New York State Assemblyman in 1834, New York State Assembly Speaker in 1836, and clerk of the New York Supreme Court in 1843.
My name is William Southworth, and I'm the president of the Tompkins County Agricultural Society. As one of the 3 trustees of the school and gospel lots, I will oversee the rental or sale of the land given by New York State to the town for the purposes of providing for support and construction of the schools and churches.
Are there any candidates for the office of Poundmaster?
My name is David Curtis, and I am running for the position of Poundmaster. I will gather all stray livestock into the pound, and I will charge the owners the fees required to maintain such animals when the owners come to retrieve their livestock.
Are there any candidates for the office of Overseer of Highways?
My name is Phineas Bennett, and I own the grist, plaster, and sawmills on Fall Creek. I am running for one of the 37 positions of Overseer of Highways. I am running in District Number 3. I also serve as Pathmaster in the village of Ithaca, and thus have experience maintaining the paths that are used for transportation throughout our village, and can bring that experience to overseeing the town highway in District Number 3.
Now we will proceed to the nomination for officers.
I nominate Nathan Herrick as Town Supervisor.
I second the nomination.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Thank you for your trust in me, my fellow Bucktails. Is there a nomination now for town clerk?
I nominate Isaac Beers for Town Clerk and the rest of the Bucktail ticket as the slate for the remaining town offices.
I second those nominations as a slate.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
As mentioned before, the Bucktails were followers of Martin Van Buren and opponents of the then 6th governor of New York, DeWitt Clinton. Van Buren would go on to become the 9th governor of New York in 1828, and then the 8th president of the United States in 1836. The Bucktails were also supporters of Andrew Jackson in the 1824 presidential election, which he lost to John Quincy Adams before winning the presidency in a rematch against Adams in 1828. An article in the American Journal, an Ithaca newspaper published on April 11th, 1821, a week after the first annual meeting, stated the following.
Town meets. Our Bucktail neighbors are quite rejoiced at the success of their party ticket in the town meeting in this new town of Ithaca. The decent men of that party, who observed by what means the majority on the occasion was obtained, will never boast of the result.
The reporter implies that the Bucktails should not be proud of the way they won the town elections at that first annual meeting. The American Journal also mentioned that in the new, smaller town of Ulysses, the Republican ticket beat the Bucktail ticket by 110 votes in the supervisor race. After reporting on the elections in the towns of Dryden and Enfield, and then noting that in the towns of Hector and Lansing elections, quote, very properly, it was not made a party question, unquote. The reporter goes on to say,
It is carrying party spirit too far when it is brought into town elections, and we shall leave it for the dignified writers of the Chronicle to expatiate upon the causes and the consequences, the important objects and the mighty results of these petty squabbles.
Are there any resolutions to be brought before the town's freeholders and inhabitants today?
I believe that we should raise taxes to provide for the poor of our town. When Jesse Merritt and I meet on May 8th to apportion the town between the new towns of Ithaca, Enfield, and Ulysses, We will become responsible for those poor living in our town. Thus, I move that this town raise $200 by tax to pay our proportion of the debt which has accrued in supporting the poor of the late town of Ulysses, and for defraying the expenses of the poor in the ensuing year.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Are there any other resolutions to be brought before the town's freeholders and inhabitants today?
I believe that we should also decide how the money derived from the gospel and school lots should be divided. Thus, I move that $1 of the proceeds of the school and gospel lot be applied to the support of the gospel and the rest to the support of common schools.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Are there any other resolutions to be brought before the town's freeholders and inhabitants today?
Yeah, I believe we should prohibit swine from running free in the town. When allowed to run free, the swine will root through our vegetable gardens and ruin the efforts of our hard labor. Thus, I move that no swine shall be allowed to run at large in this town.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Are there any other resolutions to be brought before the town's freeholders and inhabitants today?
Yes, as pound master, I believe we should prohibit seed horses from running free in the town. When allowed to run free, the seed horses will create havoc. Thus, I move that no seed horses shall be permitted to run at large under penalty of $20.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Are there any other resolutions to be brought before the town's freeholders and inhabitants today?
Yes. Since our farmers are worried about the spread of Canada thistle through the fields, I believe we should prohibit Canada thistle from growing freely in the town. The Canada thistle is a noxious weed that is not native to this land. Thus, I move that any person or persons who shall allow Canada thistle to run to seed on their land after due notice having been given them shall forfeit and pay the sum of $5.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Are there any other resolutions to be brought before the town's freeholders and inhabitants today?
Before the Bucktails adopt any further resolutions, I move that this meeting adjourn until our next annual meeting, then to be held at the hotel in the village of Ithaca in 1822.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Thus ended the first annual meeting of the new town of Ithaca. A few weeks later, on April 28, 1821, a special town meeting was called upon the request of 12 freeholders of the town for the purpose of taking into consideration the necessity of electing 3 additional constables for the town of Ithaca. But the meeting attendees decided on motion made and seconded that resolved that it is not necessary to elect any additional constables for the present year.
This is the end of our reenactment of the first annual meeting of the freeholders and inhabitants of the town of Ithaca. I would like to thank all of the town board members and town staff who participated in this reenactment, along with our special guests from the city of Ithaca, Mayor Svante Myrick, Deputy Mayor Deb Mullenhoff, and Chief of Staff Dan Cogan, who were here in recognition of the fact that the original inhabitants of the village of Ithaca played a crucial role in the early history of the town. I would also like to thank the members of the town's Bicentennial Committee for their work in the preparations of this event. Supervisor Rod Howe, Town Board Member Pat Leary, Town Clerk Paulette Rosa, Town Human Resources Director Judy Drake, and our Town Historian David George. And finally, I would like to especially thank one of our town planners, Chris Balestra, for all her help with this event and our March 16th event. If you missed our March 16th dramatic reading of the state legislation that was passed to create the town of Ithaca, you can go to the town's YouTube channel and find the video recording there, where you can view it at any time that you have a few minutes. You can also find there the video recording of the March 9th discussion Rod Howe had with Cornell professor Dr. Kurt Jordan and the Gayagono sachem Sam George about the indigenous inhabitants of this area in the pre-colonial era and the history of the Gayagono Nation of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. For further information about the early days of the town of Ithaca, you can consult the book Explaining Tompkins, Its Growth and Government, written by County Historian Carol Kamen and former County Administrator Joe Mariani to commemorate the bicentennial of Tompkins County, which was in 2017. You can also stop into the lobby of Town Hall at 215 North Tioga Street in the city of Ithaca and check out our lobby display cases, where there will be revolving displays throughout our bicentennial year, put together by our town historian David George in conjunction with the History Center in Tompkins County. Our lobby is open during our regular business hours of 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, Monday through Friday. You can also learn more about the history of the town and the county at the History Center's museum and the Tompkins Center for History and Culture building located a block away from Town Hall on the Commons. And finally, to keep in touch with these bicentennial activities of the town and other information about the town, you can check out the town's website or the town's Facebook page or the town's Twitter account. We are both on Facebook and on Twitter. Thank you for watching our reenactment and have a good evening. And now everyone may take a bow.